1 minute ago, the whole world seemed normal. The next minute, everything shifted. Imagine a mayor, a capital in shock, reporters racing, neighbors checking TV. Tonight we step into a story that could shake institutions, but also test the strength of democracy, character, and common decency. Stay with me. This is a dramatized what if, a story built to make you think, feel, and ask, what would we do next? Pause. Let's begin. Pause. It begins with a single image. A convoy stops, a small crowd gathers, a uniformed presence. For older viewers who remember the cadence of tumultuous news in earlier decades, Watergate, Iran-Contra, major trials, there's a familiar electric hush. That hush tells you a life-defining moment is beginning. In our story, the mayor steps from a vehicle. Officers move quickly. Phones rise. Headlines form before the first question is finished. The hush becomes noise. You feel the gravity in your chest, not because you know the truth, but because institutions are being tested in front of your eyes. Pause. Softer. What do you do in that first blink? You watch, you listen, and you try to remember the values that anchor a fair society. Cliffhanger line. And then, a single voice on a megaphone makes a claim that nobody expected. Rumors run faster than facts. Within 90 seconds, a claim is posted, shared, reshared. Friends on social media tag one another. A cable channel teases a live update. For those of you who grew up with the evening paper, this is the new front page. Instant, pulsing, irreversible unless corrected. How much do you trust that first claim? In our scene, the claim is explosive. Mayor detained in connection with a major political probe. But no one has all the details. And that vacuum becomes the stage for every human response. Anger, disbelief, curiosity, pity. Pause. It's a humbling reminder of how fragile our sense of certainty is. Cut to the private world. Aides, friends, family. The phone rings in a quiet kitchen. A spouse watches television in disbelief. Close allies scramble for facts. Legal counsel, former colleagues, an old mentor from community activism. They speak in calm, clipped tones because panic is contagious and they must be steadier than the cameras. For many in our audience, that private scene will be familiar. The way a family absorbs public crisis as personal pain. Soft chuckle. It's always harder from the inside. When public figures face sudden crisis, a review begins, not by a court, but by memory. Clip reels roll, charity ribbons, speeches in solemn halls, fights with ministers, tributes at memorials. For viewers aged 60 to 65, the montage will tug at recollections of civic life. Protests managed, parades led, tragic anniversaries honored. The past becomes evidence in the court of public sentiment. Pause. The question becomes, will decades of service withstand a single, blistering headline? The cameras multiply. The 24/7 networks stretch like a rubber band. The tighter the stretch, the louder the snap. Reporters try to be first and right at the same time. Producers hunt for context. Commentators hunt for narrative. Older viewers know this rhythm. We used to wait for the morning edition. Now the morning edition is a constant feed. The ethical question creeps in. Do you report the rumor because people demand it, or do you hold back until verification? The answer shapes what the public believes by the time the truth emerges. Meanwhile, one veteran reporter makes a call that will change everything. In the newsroom, a seasoned journalist flips through sources, remembers mentors who taught verification before viral velocity. He refuses to read unverified names on air. He chooses instead to trace paper trails, legal filings, and the thin thread of a statement from authorities. That choice, to prioritize verification, is a small battle that often decides whether a crisis becomes a catastrophe. Our audience will admire the restraint. It's the kind of journalistic muscle that years of trust are built on. But restraint is lonely. Ratings howl for drama. Pause. What happens when that reporter finds an inconvenient lead? A soft-spoken civil servant leaks a single line. There is an inquiry. That line is not a verdict, but it feeds every rumor into a fuller story. The leak is anonymous, protective, full of caveats, and yet it is the scent of legitimacy many viewers will mistake for guilt. Leaks force institutions to respond, rapidly, awkwardly, sometimes wrongly. Leaks are the modern equivalent of whispered accusations in a town square. Our scene shows the mayor's team drafting a public statement, testing each word for legal risk and emotional honesty. They press send. What does authority sound like in a crisis? Calm, precise, and minimal, or brash, defensive, and expansive? In our dramatization, the official statement is measured, an acknowledgement that an inquiry has been opened and that the mayor will cooperate fully. No admissions, no confessions, but a promise of transparency. For many older citizens, that phrasing will ring familiar. It's the boilerplate of modern institutions. Promises are easy. Fulfillment is hard. Pause. The public reaction? A storm of opinion. Opinion is not law, and yet it moves markets, influences votes, and affects reputations in ways courts cannot. In our story, pundits leap in. Some call for resignation, others call for calm. Social clubs, church groups, and kitchen tables buzz. People who normally speak only in whispers on politics now speak plainly, because scandal makes everyone an expert. For older viewers, this is a call back to the radio days when civic debate was passion without the keyboard's anonymity. Then, a familiar voice from the past breaks the conversation. A former ally, a community elder who remembers the mayor before headlines, steps forward with a plea for patience. We are built on law, not instant verdicts, they say. The plea is influential because it brings moral weight and lived memory, a counterbalance to the instant outrage. For those watching, it's a reminder that reputations are complex, that people who have led communities also have enemies and critics. Moral nuance rarely fits neatly into a 30-second clip. Pause. Still, the press keeps circling. Switch to the legal perspective. An investigator explains how inquiries differ from arrests, how detention can range from a short interview to a formal charge. Our dramatized legal commentator lays out the steps. Interview under caution, voluntary attendance, formal arrest, each a world apart in consequence. The details matter. The public's instinct is to collapse nuance into headlines. A lawyer's job is to insist on step-by-step clarity. For viewers in their 60s, many of whom have watched high-profile trials, this is a crucial lesson in patience. But not everyone waits on patience. Political rivals sharpen their knives. Allies weigh whether association is a liability. In our fictional scene, the opposition smells opening to attack, while the mayor's party braces for damage control. Elections, policies, and budgets hang in the balance. Older viewers who recall hard-fought campaigns understand that political fortunes turn on perception as much as policy. One small headline tonight could reshape a campaign season. Pause. Yet the deepest impacts are often felt in quieter places. Back to the neighborhoods. Front counters closed? Stations busier? Local services scrutinized? Trust between communities and institutions frays when scandal hits the top. Our dramatization shows a local cafe where conversation turns from weather to governance. For older citizens, community is everything. When leaders are questioned, so is the social glue that holds neighborhoods together. And then a surprising figure arrives at the cafe with a story. A retired teacher remembers a small kindness from the mayor years ago, a scholarship, a careful visit. She steps on camera and speaks not with politics, but with gratitude. The witness's memory is a humanizing counterpoint to the abstract allegations. In crisis stories, human memories can reframe the narrative. For our audience, this moment is a pause to breathe. The public figure is not only a headline, but a sum of small acts. Pause. But memory itself is tricky. Memories warm our hearts, but they do not substitute for documented evidence. The investigators look for emails, records, timestamps, the mundane things that either corroborate or contradict testimony. In our piece, a trove of dated calendar invites becomes crucial. Older viewers who kept paper diaries sigh at the irony. The ephemeral becomes permanent in the digital age. The investigators find something odd in the logs. A calendar entry exists that seems out of place, a meeting scheduled, then cancelled, then reappearing. It could be nothing, or it could be the thread that unravels more. In the hands of a skilled investigator, anomalies become leads. For citizens used to the slow march of administrative life, this is the moment when bureaucracy becomes evidence. Pause. The story inches toward a decisive public moment, a press conference. At noon, the press conference is called. Cameras line the square. Every member of the audience remembers press conferences that changed history, and waits for the same revelation. The mayor steps up, composed but clearly taxed. He speaks of service, of mistakes, of cooperation with authorities, and of confidence in due process. The tone is crucial. A stumble can become a story, a well-chosen phrase can defuse it. For our audience, it's almost cinematic. Leadership on display, bearing the weight of expectation. But then, an unexpected caller interrupts the conference. A whistleblower contact interrupts with a claim that complicates everything, a new allegation that reframes the public understanding. The newsroom erupts. Viewers lean in. The caller's veracity is not yet known. In our story, this moment forces everyone to ask, how do we separate theater from truth? Older viewers, who have lived through political cycles, recognize the pattern. New claims demand verification, but they also shift perceptions rapidly. Pause. And while truth is being sought, people outside institutions take action. Citizens organize vigils, some calling for accountability, others for calm. Churches, community centers, and social clubs suddenly form ad hoc forums to discuss civics. For our target audience, these forums are familiar territory, the place where values are exercised face-to-face rather than online. The crisis becomes a civic lesson. How do communities respond when leaders are suspect? While the public debates, the investigators make a crucial decision.